Welcome everybody to this episode of O365Eh. Today we're joined by longtime Microsoft Office Apps and Services MVP, Tom Arbuthnot, and also Tom's the co-founder of Empowering.Cloud. So welcome, Tom.
Hey guys, great to be on the show. Thank you.
I think we've all collectively known each other for many years, so it's fantastic.
Quite a long time. Yeah.
Get you in front of the camera and ask you some questions about your latest endeavor, which is Empowering.Cloud. So with that, I'll turn it over and you can just introduce yourself and what you've been up to.
Yeah, thanks guys. So I've been in the space for a long time. If you go back far enough, I was doing Cisco Call Manager, but I quickly flipped to Microsoft around the OCS time, just before Link 2010. Spent a decade at a Microsoft kind of specialist partner modality, mostly working with enterprise customers. So it's kind of your SAPs, your AstraZenecas, your EYs, some big seat count stuff, some other stuff mixed in there, but mostly enterprise. And just recently, so the start of this calendar year, I left there to start my own thing. So I'm working a couple of days a week with Pure IP, who are a OC telco that I know really well and work with there on solutions. And the rest of my time is my own company, which I co-founded with one of the original founders of Modality. It's called Empowering.Cloud or EmpoweringCloud. And yeah, the whole idea with that is to kind of bring really good quality training, advice, guidance, and we'll talk around it, but it's kind of spanning the worlds of like training, advice, analyst, bringing all that content together for people and having a completely free tier so anybody can get to it, because that's really important to me from a community perspective. And then we have a premium program for kind of mainly for Microsoft partners who are trying to get up to speed on, our world.
Yeah, that's great. And Tom, let's just take a step down a level into what exactly it offers. So I signed up yesterday. I was looking at it. Looks really, really good in terms of the contents. We're really well curated. But can you tell the audience, in addition to the content, I know you think you offer in-person events too, and there's a Teams app you can install to get the content. Can you just talk high level about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the goal was to get people the information in the best format. And honestly, when I span out of Modality, I went around looking for, various content management systems, learning management systems. And I couldn't find anything that fit the bill that we could quickly add content to, that we could integrate to Teams, that we could have social login to, we could control the layout. Our world, it changes really fast. So we can't have like just a set learning path on a topic, because things are going to change. So you're going to want to edit videos, edit content. So went around looking at options, decided we had to build our own. Tom Morgan, fellow MVP, who you guys also know well, joined me on the project to be our developer. So all the credit on the platform stuff goes to him really, but we built our own content platform all on Azure. We had a couple of contractors do the front end stuff. So all the web UI, UX is the contractors, all the architecture is Tom. But the basic format is 15-minute or less video briefings, so short, sharp, to the point. And the idea is very much for it not to be the Tom show. I do a lot of content on there, but we're bringing in other subject matter experts. Hopefully going to get all you guys on the hook sooner or later for a video. But this is really, the logic of that is nobody can know everything in the team space. So I'd rather go out to somebody who's recently done VDI or done compliance recording or all these edge cases and say, look, can you just do a 15-minute talk, we call them briefings, around this subject? And it's not the Microsoft pitch, it's not the marketing pitch. It's like, here's the reality, here's what Microsoft say, here's how it actually works. So keeping it very honest, real world, and kind of that's, I think that separates us away from kind of your traditional. Obviously you've got various people who can do Teams training, there's some good stuff on Pluralsight and CPT Nuggets, those kind of things that give you the exam content. We're plugging that gap as well, but more than that, we're doing monthly updates, changes, issues, trying to build a community so we can all together work through kind of the big challenge that is keeping up with Teams and the pace of change and the licensing changes and the ecosystem changes. There's just a lot to kind of nail down. So trying to bring all that together in short, sharp briefings to give people a fighting chance of keeping up to date.
So Tom, I know that with when you're implementing all these different resources, is it dedicated more towards the IT pro as to more the end user side, and sort of, I know there's a lot of different like you talked some of the platforms that are out there, sort of how do you differentiate yourself between sort of those two platforms, not two, but those other platforms?
Yeah, good question. So yes, very much focused on the IT Pro. We kind of lean a bit into developer land, so we cover the API story as well, but it's not really end user. We're just trying to really service that IT Pro, and that IT Pro actually falls into two camps. It's consultants, either independent consultants or consultants at partners, and there's a lot of telcos who are on. So we've got about just under, like the numbers before we jumped on, so 1,400 users on the free tier, and we've got 5 partners on the premium program. So it's a mix of partners and customers. The customer IT pros tend to be enterprise because their full-time job is Teams, so they care about Teams. But we do see a real mix, but not end user, just focusing on, I think that IT Pro challenge is big enough, to be honest. And in terms of differentiating away from like your traditional learning resources, obviously you've got great stuff on Microsoft Learn and say Pluralsight, CPT Nuggets, but I'm doing monthly updates. So every month, 15 minutes. It's stretched to 18 this month for all the Ignite news, so slightly over 15. But everything you need to know. And then there's a comments box under each briefing, and that alerts the author of the briefing. So you can ask questions, engage with that person. So we're not trying to say like, here's the content, how it's done. It's almost like the content is the start of a conversation. And I would never say I know everything about Teams. I just spend a lot of time on it. So I kind of know how to start the conversation, but actually I usually know between the ecosystem vendors, guys like you, other people around the community, I know who I can reach out to get an authoritative answer. So it's kind of bringing all that skill and knowledge together in a consumable format is the idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of this, because I mean, if you were not maybe in the inner circles of the MVP program or interacting with a product group, that information spread across Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, personal blogs. So I like the idea of building this community. Early on, Curtis was talking about the bot. Maybe we could talk. Maybe if you could talk into what the bot actually does and why you might want to set that up. Just FYI, the setup process was like 10 seconds. So it was pretty
awesome.
Slick.
Yeah, Tom will appreciate that. So yeah, the bot's a big part of this. So engaging people is a big part of it. So we have a Teams bot, and it will ping you when the updates are available. And at the moment, it pings you a URL and you click and go through to the platform. We're waiting, and we're working with the Microsoft Adaptive Cards team. We're waiting for video to be native in Adaptive Cards. And then the idea is we'll be able to push the content directly to you. So we're doing a lot with, on the partner premium program side, we're doing a lot of kind of pre-sales technical training. And those people are particularly busy. You struggle to get them engaged. So it's things like Cisco partners coming over to our world. And if we can push them a 15-minute briefing or a 15-minute video on a learning path, and it comes right into Teams for them, it's right there and it's good to go. That's the idea. What we're working on the back end is a more clever notification engine. So you can start to say, I'm particularly interested in rooms, or I'm particularly interested in VDI, or I'm particularly interested in the collaboration features. And you'll be able to tune those notifications to say, oh, I only want to know when something in the room space or the UC space is updated or changed, or I'm going down the MS700 learning path. I can commit to 2 15-minute videos a week. So ping me at this time and this time when I have the time to do those videos, and it will just ping you the content directly. And what's interesting is, I say that we've got those sort of 1,400 or so users on. We have about 100 on the bot at the moment. We only recently launched it. The engagement on the bot is crazy. It's like 90%, because like people get that message, they click it and they engage. So it kind of bypasses that whole email overload and just brings the content directly to people in Teams.
Yeah, I mean, the bot is pretty slick. I wonder, I'm wondering if this is maybe a future feature, but talking about the community being able to like post it a question and like kind of put it on a board right from the bot, or maybe a tab that you can interact with the community right from within it.
Yeah, we've definitely got that idea. We're working on the community notifications coming in and out of the bot as well. We also thought the search on the bot would be really cool. So you could ask it a question and we would surface the most appropriate content back into Teams for you. So we have got the capability of it being a two-way street. At the moment, it's more of a broadcast scenario. But yeah, I think that'd be cool, Michael, if you could just ping in like Teams VDI and get the 3 briefings that matter the most, and then you could literally click through them on Teams. We just want to meet people where they are, really, not force them over to our portal necessarily.
Even a Q&A would be cool to like pose to the community. I guess tech community would also do that, but I find that it's not always kind of the back and forth that you're looking for with, like, you know, what we had at Gazala and Twitter and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we're really working hard. So we just recently hired a lady who I used to work with at Modality called Lindsay, who's awesome, and her title is community manager. And building up that community is the biggest challenge and potentially the biggest benefit, because it's hard to get people to engage early. So we're starting to get some chat in the forums and some questions on each of the briefings, but I hope over time it can be a genuine, you know, knowledge base where people share. And we're working really hard to curate it, because one of the big problems with, you know, other forums is they get flooded with random questions that don't always, you know, aren't very well eloquently put maybe, or don't have a great answer. We're going to work quite hard to work with people to make sure that it's curated useful knowledge, not just a lot of like, how do I sign into Teams, I can't download Teams doesn't work. Like we want to be IT pro level kind of conversations.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was noticing about the premium program. So love the free content and the learning paths there. But this seems like, is this basically architecture as a service? So an organization might sign up looking to have a path moving forward to deploy Teams, and doesn't necessarily want to hire a full-on project consulting-based project. So might they leverage your service to maybe just get over the humps over the first few months, get general directions? Is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when we launched, we were both considering kind of end customers and Microsoft partners, and there's a lot going on with all the partners going on to Operator Connect, and all the Cisco and AV partners coming over to meet us in our world a little bit, and us meet them. So the customer bit has been relatively like niche, and it's mostly been big enterprise who kind of want, like, they do need the latest information. You know, like I'm working with customers that have product owners for the subcategories of Teams, like there's a meetings one and a telephony one and a collaboration one. So it's less like helping them with their project and more them keeping up to date on the licensing changes, the API changes, the feature changes, because they have the same struggle we do. Like they particularly in the really big enterprise, they can dedicate people to it. Actually, if you get to the couple of thousand seaters where they're responsible for multiple services, they really struggle because they can't spend all day like, you know, some of us can in TAP and Preview and the 8 forums and Twitter and LinkedIn keeping up. So yeah, I'd say it's less project and more information and advice. And on the partner side, a lot of it is just driving their people through training. MS700, we're working on the MS720 content, but peppering it in with kind of market insights and real world stuff. So it's not just pure training. It's like, here's the Teams Phone, you know, marketing story, and here's the reality of how direct routing and Teams Phone mobile works and OC works and, you know, DR works, that kind of thing.
Nice. I noticed the benefactors and supporters. Maybe talk about, are you looking for more? How might somebody get listed there?
Yeah, we've been really lucky. Obviously, I've got quite a good links into the Teams community, and there's a lot of vendors out there who are adding value in the space. So the idea of making it free forever, I'm unashamedly kind of, this is a business. And one of the problems I think with these kind of community projects is people try and do them on the side and they burn out really quickly because you're trying to do it around a full-time job. So I'm lucky with Pure IP at the moment. I'm doing work with them, and that's sustaining my family and keeping my kids fed. But you know, ultimately the sponsors allow us to have that free track, which will be free forever. So the existing benefactors, which are kind of the big ticket sponsors, are Audio Codes, ABI SPL, Dubber, Neat, Luware, and Ribbon, and they've all put some good money in to kind of back this. And I'm doing some webinars and other bits and pieces with them as well. And then there's another tier of supporters, which is just a couple of grand in, and it's really been surprising and a blessing to me. A lot of them have just come along and said, look, appreciate what you're doing. You know, you do a lot for the community, like happy to support in some way. So yeah, always happy to talk to people who are interested. We're not doing a hard sell on sponsors and benefactors. Like if you see the value and there's value in me working with you, that's awesome. But yeah, it's really finding companies that fit. And what's been great, and credit to all those companies, is they have zero influence over content. Like, that's a contractual requirement. So we've had some people come along and say, great, I love what you're doing. Like, how do we get our story into this thing or that thing? And I'm like, no, it's not really how it works. Like, so I think from a sponsor point of view, I'm looking to work with people who, you know, are in our space and get it and are adding value, but are prepared to say, you know, we just want a fair crack at eyeballs. We're not looking to influence what you say. We're just saying, look, can we show, you know, what the audio codes proposition is or the AVI SPL proposition. So yeah, the sponsors allow all that content to be free forever, and we're aiming for sort of 95% of the content will be free forever. It's just that extra layer of partners who need help about partner programs, how Microsoft works, how the market works, market insights. They then give another revenue stream to keep it sustainable.
So Tom, I have a question around like the briefings that you're talking about. How do you define sort of what briefings that you come up with, like you want to show, right? Like, you know, where do those I guess ideas come from? Is, I know initially, I'm sure like you're thinking of it, is it going to be more around like, you know, feedback and community kind of things in the future?
Yeah, it's very much the idea. So there's a few parts that we're looking to cover the exam content, because that's a fundamental for a lot of people. So the MS 700 and 720 is a given. But then beyond that, it's very much community driven. So you might have noticed when you onboard, we ask a bunch of questions about what are you interested in, what we'd like to see. That all gets put into a giant spreadsheet on the back end, which helps us weight what's going on. And then we're trying to be really good, and there's a lot to do still, but really good around ecosystem, because that's one of the worst areas for teams training content. Like, you can go get MS 700 content in half a dozen places, and I think, you know, I like ours, but it's, you know, you could argue it's much of muchness, maybe, you know, but where do you go if you want a briefing on how VDI actually works, or how you would choose your compliance recording vendor, or how the OEM management around devices is done? So I'm in a lucky position where I can reach out to, you know, like Randy did a really good session around Teams native management of devices, and then the OEM options for managing devices. Like, nobody else as an entity is going to build that training, because it doesn't make any commercial sense for a training company to build it. The end individual OEM is probably only going to promote their stuff. So I think we're in a nice position where we can take a lot of information together around that and bring it into a briefing that's hopefully fairly objective, but, you know, provides value to consultants and enterprises.
Awesome.
Just to follow on to that, Tom, let's take the MS 700, which of course is the administrative training exam for certification for teams. So for someone considering doing that that exam, maybe we can talk about some specific examples of how these briefings help over and above, like you said, the many training resources out there.
Yeah, so we have, so again, each of the videos are 15 minutes or less is the goal, and we have a video and then a little quiz after that video, and you just work your way through a learning path, but you can jump around as well. So on the back end, because you're logged in, we can see what you've watched, what you haven't watched. So you don't have to do it in a linear fashion. And what we're working towards with the back-end engine is that we'll have an option to do a quiz ahead of time. So you can do a quiz, and then we can say, oh, we think these are your weak spots. So rather than going through 4 hours of content, we think you can get it through it in, you know, just doing these select briefings. But I think the thing we would add for the MS 700, I hope, is when you come out of it, you've had a bit more real world. You know, it's not super produced. It's me and other people in the community jumping on and doing screen share and sharing the real Teams Admin Center and the real management portal and stuff. But if you've got questions or you don't understand something, there's that community so that we can improve that content. And this has happened a couple of times. You know, we put a video out and somebody's like, oh, I don't understand this. You didn't explain that. This could be better. And we'll just, you know, when we've got the time, add a video and add those answers. So over time, the content stays fresh and gets better and better, rather than the classic. And I don't want to, like, I've a lot of friends in this community, so I don't want to knock anybody else's content. But typically, I've done stuff for people like Pluralsight. You get contracted to do a course, and then you refresh it like 18 months later, and not much happens between those two dates. And that's the old training model, right? You build something and you sell it. Ours is very different. Ours is evergreen, like the cloud. That's the idea.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And I think all of us have lived the delta between the knowledge that's out there, the Microsoft resources, and then real world. So it seems to help bridge some of that gap, which could be really useful.
Yeah, and we're looking for people to like kind of help us and call that stuff out as well on the site. So like if things have changed, if you've got different experiences, we want people to comment. This is very much not us saying like this is the absolute authority and it's unquestionable. It's the other way around. It's like this is what we've come up with so far as a group of people. Like you might see the change before we see the change. So by all means, ping us and say, well, that's not how this seems to work now, or they've added this feature, they've added that feature. We want to keep it real world and evergreen.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well said. All right. Well, this has been great, Tom. We look forward to using it. I know, like you said, just keeping up, even as a Microsoft MVP, keeping up with all the Teams changes is a real challenge. So we'll definitely use Empowering.Cloud to help with that. So
yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all your input on the project as well. And yeah, keep it coming. It's there for everybody, hopefully. So yeah, and if anybody wants to join, just Empowering.Cloud, you can sign in with your LinkedIn login or an email and give it a go, see what you think.
Sounds good. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody.